Welcome to episode 18 of Full Court Magic. And folks, today is the day where the Magic truly begin fighting for their playoff lives. This is the first of only two chances they will get in the NBA play-in tournament to truly advance to the postseason. I am joined by my colleague at Roundtable Sports, Anthony Aguirre, who has done an excellent job covering the Miami Heat and contributing to the Orlando Magic throughout this 82-game marathon. And though his season of playoff coverage ended swiftly with a Heat loss last night, and we will be talking about that a little later on, he is here to give his analysis of what the Magic have ahead of them. And plus, we will get into a potential opponent that they will have to face in the Charlotte Hornets after the Hornets beat the Heat last night. Anthony, my man, we were just on a couple days ago on your show. How are you doing today?
This was, I will say that they did a better job than I expected, especially when Bam went down. Because it's hard to replicate his impact on the court. So I do want to give props to Wiggins, Mitchell, Kel'el Ware to a certain extent. They did really good in making up for it, but it was back and forth for most of it, and the Hornets just came with it in the end. And man, it was so much back and forth, man. It was insane.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, a 4-point swing there right at the end to force overtime. Crazy stuff. And that's going to cause a problem for this team up here in Central Florida because Anthony, it's not looking great for the Magic tonight. They are not favored in this game against the 76ers, obviously coming off an incredibly disappointing loss to the Boston Celtics, which we talked about just 48 hours ago. And this is a team that is going to get a break in not having to face Joel Embiid, but the Sixers still have plenty of firepower. You talk about Tyrese Maxey, you talk about VJ Edgecombe having a great rookie season, and then you've got your veterans and Paul George and Andre Drummond. From my view, this is a Magic team that's going to have to do a lot of things right to win this game, especially when it comes to limiting turnovers. Will Wendell Carter Jr. be able to get after it down low against Drummond and really be the bigger bully in the matchup? Because Drummond has made his career off of getting boards. That's what he's known for. And so Embiid might be out, but in some ways, this might be even more difficult for the Magic centers, not just Wendell Carter Jr. Can Paolo Banchero have an efficient shooting night? Can he limit his own turnovers? He had a triple-double in that game against Boston, but at what cost? He shot 7 of 22 and turned the ball over 6 times. That's not going to do it in the playoffs. There's so many moving parts here, but the good news for the Magic is that they are mostly healthy. Only 2 guys on the injury report right now. Jonathan Isaac and Jet Howard, both are game time decisions, so they might even step on the floor. What do you see in terms of what the Magic need to do, or how does this game look from your perspective against the 76ers?
Well, you kind of touched on it with the matchups down the middle, because Joel Embiid, again, like we talked about the other day, is he really breaks down your defense. You have to focus on him a lot when he gets down there. Of course, the fouling part of it becomes a headache. So you just got to worry about Maxey, which is still a heavy task. But as you mentioned, if Wendell Carter Jr. can impose his will to a greater extent down the middle, it'll do a lot of damage. And again, you just hope you have at least a decent performance from Paolo and Franz. They obviously have had their mix up this year, and not to say that they can't play together. It's just because they've done it. They've had success in the past, so I don't question that. It's just more so finding that continuity again in a game that matters most. Yes, you have another chance if you lose this, but like we'll get to later, you don't want to take a risk at just what you might think is a lesser opponent. So I think that matchup in the middle is going to be very crucial.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. And we've seen in the past last year, it seems like Paolo and Franz can hit a different gear in the postseason. They both last season, despite just lasting in 5 playoff games in that first round loss to the Celtics, both finished in the top 10 of playoff scoring average, points per game. Paolo was sixth. Franz finished in ninth, ahead of LeBron. And so, these are two young players where the lights have not proven to be too bright for them. They have shown up, and definitely going to need that from Paolo, especially. I wrote a story yesterday on Franz's comments after the practice, and he said that, paraphrasing here, but that he feels
Mhm,
that Paolo is operating with an increased sense of confidence, which is good. You're going to need that from your star player. Especially after he couldn't lift you to a much needed win on Sunday, because that loss to the Celtics, I mean, it took away what little control the Magic had over their postseason destiny. So now, instead of hosting this 7-8 game, you are the visitor. And that is not a situation you really wanted to be in, but it's the reality of where they're at. Another thing I wanted to talk with you about, my man, is there's been some increased noise, especially on Twitter, and from
mhm,
increasingly reputable sources, about the future of Jamahl Mosley.
mhm.
Jake Fisher put out a report about Mosley's tenuous future, and there is talks that no matter what happens in the playoffs, he is almost certainly fired. So you would have to imagine that if the Magic do indeed go 0 for 2 in this play-in, um, that it's going to be a rather swift exit, more than likely. What do you make of the noise surrounding Coach Mosley? Do you think that how much of the blame for this disappointing season do you put on him?
I'll give it a good, and I might be underestimating it, but maybe like a good 40. I wouldn't
Percent?
say I wouldn't say everything's on him just because the injury bug really played a role in this.
Hmm.
Also, let's keep in mind, like, yes, the Magic have shown competitive spirit for the last couple of years, but this is the first year that they're all in.
Yeah,
So it's hard to say that, okay, yeah, that this didn't go so well because Coach Mosley just isn't the guy, but he's had the Magic force a game 7 against the Cavaliers, and despite only lasting 5 games, the Magic were very competitive against Boston.
I agree.
Some would even say they were the best matchup against that team.
Hmm.
So I don't want to throw it all on him because again, this is the first year you were supposed to actually compete. Obviously, you underachieved because last couple of years you could say they overachieved. So
Hmm.
I would give him one more year. I would, me personally. Now, obviously, Jake is a well-known guy in the industry. He's known to have his people, be accurate on most things. But yeah, if you lose the first two play-ins, then yeah, you're most certainly out. But then my question is, who's next in line? Because I remember there was some connection with Malone, but now he's in UNC. So you wonder, okay, who's available? Because right now there's not really any names that come to mind that are any better, unless
Yeah.
you have them for me.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. Yeah, it certainly does not fall all on Mosley. I do believe he's hit his ceiling. This reminds me of kind of JB Bickerstaff before Detroit, helped get a Cleveland team out of the gutter,
Mhm.
instilled an identity, and then was much more successful at his second head coaching job. That could be a Jamal Mosley situation. Who knows? But I do think that the culture's instilled, but I just feel like he's reached his limit with this group. Now, we could be surprised because the Magic have a front office that is not one to be aggressive, and I've already seen this happen in Central Florida sports, just down the way from where I'm from with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Todd Bowles. Fans were calling for his job all season long, especially when the Bucks missed the playoffs and the front office elected to keep him at least for one more season. That could very well happen with the Magic. Yeah, a name that I've been seeing floated recently is Billy Donovan. Billy was apparently tied to this job way back in 2007 before deciding to stay at Florida. obviously has not had the greatest tenure with the Bulls. They've been kind of a perennial play-in team, and then this year missed it altogether. Uh, and the belief remains with Billy inside that organization, but they cleaned
Mhm,
house in the front office. So, it's hard to say. That's another thing that I've talked about is that if the Magic don't feel like they have the right candidate lined up, could they stick it out with Mosley one more year? But now there's reports that a star player is so fed up. And again, this could just be speculation, hearsay. I have not had a chance to like really look into this, but it's interesting now that all these like conversations are really getting some fire under them before the Magic have even played a postseason game.
mhm.
But there is talks that a star player will want out if Mosley retains his job. And so there's a lot of drama and stress surrounding the team right now. And I feel like collectively, kind of like the Heat, I think this team in some ways just wants the season to be over. But yeah, it's hard to say what's going to happen with Mosley or what's going to happen with the organization. All we can do is see what happens here because if they win tonight or they beat Charlotte on Friday,
Mhm.
then and they go and they actually can make some noise in the playoffs, even if they don't win a series. I mean, I hate to say it to the fans that want him out, but that only improves his case for staying, especially under this front office. I mean, what do you think? Like,
I mean, I take it with a grain of salt. I know the report you're talking about, mainly because of who it is and just the
hmm
unfamiliarity. Also because the Magic are just known to be tough to get inside information on. So
hmm
I can definitely speak on that. But okay, you talk about a star player, but who's to say the whole team isn't stressed? There's a lot of
Yeah.
emotions going on right now.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say that a star player is gonna want out because let's say allegedly it's Paulo. He's under contract for 5 more years regardless.
hmm
Same for France, 4 more years. So what good does this do? Like
Yeah.
it does nobody good. Like yes, frustrations are going to flare. This has been a very stressful season. Injuries here, not performing well here, losing the teams that you shouldn't be losing to all over the place.
hmm
So I get it, but I take this report with a grain of salt just because this whole year has been stressful, and I know we do all the time fire the coach, but you need stability in a certain extent. And again, this is the first year the Magic were supposed to be contenders. So let's not act like it's been like 5 years of contention and you're going nowhere.
hmm
So I would just say let's pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there definitely has been moments of coaching malpractice in terms of in-game decisions and things like that. And I feel like there's been times where like there were glaring issues that maybe Mosley didn't see, or at least he wasn't letting on to us that he saw. But I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens. It really will.
Mhm.
Before we get out of here, I wanted to do one more segment, and this circles back to that game that you had to watch and cover last night. If the Magic lose tonight in Philly, they have a date at home with the Charlotte Hornets, who have just dominated this matchup. They beat the Magic 3-1 in the regular season series. They won the last three games, each of which I am pretty sure were by double digits. That was a drag out fight last night as we talked about between the Heat and the Hornets. What did you notice that if that is indeed the Magic's next opponent, what do they have to watch out for?
They played to the very end. The Heat even Spo talked about it. Even without Bam, the Heat had multiple chances to pull out of there with the win, even in regulation. And then Hyman missed a free throw, which gave them an open window. Kobe White went for that crazy 3-pointer. So they're playing to the very end. They're not afraid to get after it. They're not afraid to play a little scrappy. Uh, what really gave them the leverage was they out rebounded the Heat. Even though the
hmm
Heat had more fast break points, they simply got on the glass a whole lot more. And part of it again was because Bam was out. LaMelo, he he's known to take very questionable shots. We've known this since he's entered the
Yeah.
league. He went 2 of 16 from three. Now, most of them you live with because most of the looks did not look good at all. It looked very forced. So that's definitely an area you got to look at because he'll score in the paint, he'll score in the mid range. He has a good floater. So you just got to wonder, okay, how if you can get him as ineffective on the outside shooting, then all right, you live and die by some of the threes he takes.
Mhm.
And then for Miles Bridges, he was a big body. I thought defensively he really held his own. I've always thought Bridges as like a much bigger power forward than what he actually is,
Mhm.
and he showed it. He showed to be a very big body, hit a bunch of crazy threes, which is not really known for him. So I would say they're a scrappy team that wants to get in the playoffs. They want to get in there. They want to be part of the dance. Now the rookies were not good, especially Khan. Khan was horrible in this game. This is probably the most human he ever looked all season. Just 6 points. So you got to wonder if if the Magic are to lose this, Khan's gonna want to respond, and that's obviously that's not a good night for anybody.
Mm-mm.
So I would say if this is if like whatever this comes down to is gonna come down to who wants it more because we've seen both teams not execute so well in certain situations, and yet it's about who wants it more because the Hornets are not a team known to be in this situation a lot. The Heat are. The Heat have been in this situation multiple times, close games in the playoffs, and just having to scrap it out the mud. But this time
Right.
the actually pull through with it. So I would be very like I would have a high sense of urgency to not want to play this team. The Hornets have been thriving since January 1st. They're 34 and 34 and 16 since then now, counting this win. So I would say take care of business today. That way you don't got to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah, I did definitely think that, things change in the postseason. And I was curious because I didn't get to watch last night's game. I was curious, like, from your point of view, like, this
Uh-huh.
is a Hornets team that doesn't have a ton in the way of like veteran leadership. This is a very,
No.
very young team.
Mhm.
Um, and to go through that kind of game, down to the stakes against, I know it hasn't been the Heat's year, but guys in Tyler and Bam, and I know Bam didn't last long, unfortunately got hurt, but like even Norman Powell, guys who have been there and done that, like Spoelstra who's been there and done that, and for Charles Lee to, it took a couple miracles there for the Hornets at the end because for all intents and
It
purposes,
really
they probably
did.
should have lost that game.
Oh
But
my god.
as a young team, like that scrappiness, like how dangerous on its own, that intangible do you think that is for a Magic squad that has oftentimes this season not played with enough urgency?
Very. I mean, I remember going to a game close to Christmas with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it's a similar situation where the Hornets simply wanted it more. And at that time, the Hornets were not even yet to what they are right now.
Hmm.
So, if we're looking at past data, and again, things change in the playoffs, but if the Magic don't come out with a sense of urgency, then you're signing off the season already. And respectfully, your fans the fans deserve way more than that.
Hmm.
Like again, every team goes into the play-in playoffs with a clean slate, thinking, all right, we're 0-0. Let's start off fresh. That's what the Magic have right now. They have a chance to rewrite this season and at least go off the rest of the way with a good note. And if your thought is to think you have more talent in the Hornets or more experience in the Hornets, you're losing already because this team went up against one of the most experienced teams in the league, went neck to the very end, never gave up, and they took him down right at the end. So cannot let this team have any belief that they can pull away. Otherwise, the game is wraps.
Yeah, yeah, and not to bury the Magic too early here. This is all what ifs. Magic very
Yeah.
could well win in Philly tonight and lock up a playoff spot and a date with the Boston Celtics, a rematch
Mhm.
of last year's game. But yeah, no, I mean, if not, then you can't let your Southeast Division rival sweep the state of Florida. Like that would
Yeah.
just be so bizarre because I mean this is a matchup of the Southeast Division. They already beat the team in South Beach, and now to come up here to Disneyland or Disney World and beat the Magic. I mean, you can't let that happen because the Magic also have more experience, and at that point, both teams are fighting for their playoff lives.
Also, I would just like to add real quick,
Yeah,
if we're gonna get a Magic Celtics matchup in the playoffs, I would, and you're going there with a sense of confidence, I would feel pretty decent about that because this is not that super team when they had Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. Respectfully, and I've talked about this on my own show, Section 305, about Neemias Queta. We don't know what he's like in the playoffs. He's had a good season, but we don't know it yet. And they have a bunch of other guys who are inexperienced or not to the level of that championship year that they have. So
yeah.
again, if you go in there with a sense of confidence, beating the Philadelphia 76ers on a pretty dominant note, then you're like, okay, we can give him a fighting chance.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean it's definitely it was a good matchup. Like you said last season, the Magic were able to steal one. It was low scoring, have an offensive boost by Desmond Bain. Yeah, I mean, former Magic center Nikola Vucevic, he's not the player he once was, even though he's still very effective. And so maybe they can exploit that, but got to get there first, my man. Got to get
Mhm.
there first. And
Gotta
so
get there
we will
first.
see what happens tonight. Magic visit the 76ers, 7:30 p.m. on Prime Video. Philly is a 1.5 point favorite in this game. And this is it. I mean, this is the culmination of 82 games. Just two chances left to truly get into the postseason. Anthony, I appreciate it as always, brother. Thank you for having me on your show the other day and then joining me today. It means a lot.
Yeah, of course, man.
All right, brother. All right. We will see you guys next time. I'm Don Struble. For my guest, Anthony, this has been Full Court Magic.